The captured engineer. The ambush in deep space. The cargo hauler, Distant Star, was 3 days out from the Centauri station when the raiders struck. Jenna Walsh had been elbow-deep in the ship's hyperdrive assembly, cursing the faulty plasma injectors that had been giving them trouble since they left port. The attack came without warning, sleek alien vessels emerging from hyperspace like metal sharks, their weapons already charging. Captain Morrison tried to run, but the raiders were faster. Their tractor beams locked onto the hull with crushing force, dragging the human vessel toward the largest ship in their fleet. Jenna barely had time to grab her toolkit before the boarding parties breached the airlock, filling the corridors with creatures that looked like walking nightmares. The slave market of Korath, 7. When Jenna woke up, she was in a cage aboard an alien transport, surrounded by other prisoners from a dozen different species. The journey to Korath, 7 took 6 days, during which she learned the horrible truth about her situation. The raiders weren't just pirates, they were slavers who specialized in capturing beings for the galactic entertainment industry. Korath, 7 was famous throughout the galaxy as the ultimate gladiator planet. Here, the wealthy elite from hundreds of worlds came to watch creatures fight and die for their amusement. The planet's surface was covered with massive arena complexes, each one designed to host different types of combat. Some featured environmental hazards, others focused on vehicle combat, but the most prestigious was the Crimson Colosseum. First look at the Colosseum. The Crimson Colosseum rose from the planet's surface like a metal mountain, its walls gleaming red in the light of the alien sun. The structure could hold over 2 million spectators, and its arena floor was equipped with the most advanced holographic and gravity manipulation technology in the galaxy. Champions from across known space came here to prove their worth in combat. Jenna was processed through the facility's intake system along with dozens of other new prisoners. Automated scanners recorded everything about her physiology, from her bone density to her neural patterns. The results seemed to amuse the Korath guards, who were massive reptilian creatures with armored hides and glowing yellow eyes. Another human, one guard hissed to his companion in their clicking language. They never last long, but the crowd loves watching them try. The gladiator quarters. The holding cells were surprisingly comfortable, probably because the arena masters wanted their fighters in peak condition before the slaughter. Jenna's cell was small but clean, with a bed, food dispenser, and a window overlooking the training grounds. She watched other prisoners sparring with weapons she didn't recognize, their movements deadly and precise. Her cellmate was a 4-armed creature called Torvin, who had been fighting in the arena for over a year. He was one of the few long-term survivors, which meant he was either incredibly skilled or incredibly lucky. The scars covering his blue-scaled hide suggested it was skill. "You're the new human," Torvin said, his voice like grinding stone. "I've seen others of your kind come through here." None of them understood what they were facing until it was too late. The betting pools. Torvin explained that tomorrow, Jenna would fight in the main arena. Not against other prisoners like him, but against the champions, 3 of the most deadly warriors in the galaxy. The betting pools were already active, with the longest odds for her survival being 30 seconds. Most bets were on whether she'd last 10 seconds or less. "The crowd loves watching humans fight," Torvin continued. "Your species has this fascinating way of refusing to give up even when death is certain. It's considered quite artistic, the way you struggle against impossible odds." The hidden advantage. What Torvin and the guards didn't know was that Jenna Walsh wasn't just a cargo ship mechanic. She'd served 5 years as a combat engineer in the Colonial Marines before leaving the military for civilian life. She'd built demolition charges under enemy fire, jury-rigged weapons from spare parts, and once held off an entire pirate squadron with nothing but a mining laser and creative thinking. As she lay on her bed that night, listening to the distant roar of crowds from the arena, Jenna began to plan. She'd seen the arena's layout during processing, noted the positioning of the gravity generators, power conduits, and emergency systems. The aliens saw her as entertainment, a fragile creature to be torn apart for their amusement. They were about to learn that humans didn't become the dominant species on a death world by being fragile. They became dominant by being unpredictable, resourceful, and absolutely refusing to quit when the odds were impossible. Tomorrow, the galaxy would get its first real lesson in human engineering turned to warfare. The betting pools were about to lose a lot of money. The Warlord's entertainment. The master of the arena. Warlord Vexthul stood on his gleaming observation deck, 6 arms crossed in what he considered a pose of supreme authority. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the artificial light of Korath 7's main arena, casting rainbow reflections across the polished floor. Below him, the gladiator pit stretched out like a metallic crater surrounded by thousands of alien spectators who had paid good credits to witness what they believed would be the most one-sided slaughter in galactic history. The Warlord's compound eyes focused on the small figure being led into the preparation chamber. According to the shipping manifest, her name was Jenna Walsh, though her name meant nothing to him. What did matter was her size. She couldn't be more than 5.5 feet tall, maybe 130 pounds soaking wet. Her brown hair hung in simple strands around her face, and her dark eyes seemed to dart nervously around the chamber like a trapped animal. The crowd's bloodlust. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient beings, Vexthul's voice boomed through the station's amplification system, his mandibles clicking with barely contained amusement. Today, we present something truly special, a creature from the infamous death world known as Terra. A human. The crowd erupted in a mixture of excited chittering, mechanical whirring, and what could only be described as interstellar laughter. To them, this was comedy gold. A human? One of those soft, pink, pathetically weak bipeds? Oh, this was going to be good. Vexthul's aide, a spider-like creature named Quillex, scuttled up beside him. The betting pools are heavily favored toward our champions, my lord. The longest odds are 30 seconds for human survival. Most are betting on less than 10. The arena's deadly history. 10 seconds, Vexthul's laughter sounded like grinding metal. Generous. Very generous. He gestured toward the 3 towering figures waiting in the champion's alcove. These 3 warriors have never lost a match. They've faced armies, monsters, and the deadliest killers from across the galaxy. And now they face one small human. The Crimson Colosseum had hosted battles for over 3 centuries. Champions from every corner of known space had fought and died on its blood-stained floors. The arena's advanced technology could simulate any environment, from the crushing depths of ocean worlds to the zero gravity of deep space. But today's battle would be fought on standard gravity with no environmental hazards. The crowd preferred to see pure combat skill, and they expected this to be over quickly. The preparation chamber. Meanwhile, Jenna sat in her corner of the preparation chamber, appearing to shake with fear. Her hands trembled as she wrapped her arms around her knees, and her breathing seemed rapid and shallow. To any observer, she looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, a terrified primitive from a backwater world, completely out of her depth. What the aliens didn't notice was the way her eyes moved. They weren't darting around in panic. They were calculating, measuring distances, noting the texture of the arena floor, the height of the walls, the positioning of the gravity generators that kept the spectators safely in their seats. The champion's alcove. The 3 champions stood in their alcove, each one a master of death in their own right. They had been briefed on their opponent, a single human female with no enhancements, no weapons, and no chance of survival. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution dressed up as entertainment. Crag, the largest of the 3, flexed his massive arms and tested the weight of his war hammer. The weapon was made from compressed neutron star material and could crush a tank with a single blow. His natural armor could deflect energy weapons, and his enhanced nervous system gave him reflexes that could track a bullet in flight. Xiphon stood silently, energy crackling between his fingers as he tested his power reserves. His species had evolved the ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields, and his cybernetic enhancements had amplified that power 100-fold. He could generate lightning bolts, create force fields, or simply stop a heart with a precisely targeted electromagnetic pulse. Nexar, the telepathic assassin, didn't need to test his abilities. His mind was already reaching out, trying to touch the thoughts of his upcoming opponent. But strangely, the human's mind felt different. Not weak and terrified as expected, but focused and calculating. It was probably just the primitive fear response, he decided. The final preparations. Begin the final preparations, Vexthul commanded. I want this broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Let them see what happens when primitives try to stand against the champions of Korath. 7. The arena's holographic systems activated, projecting the battle to viewers across hundreds of worlds. Betting pools from a dozen star systems registered their final wagers. The general consensus was clear: this would be over in seconds. What none of them knew was that Jenna Walsh had spent the last hour doing something no previous human gladiator had done. She hadn't been praying or crying or begging for mercy. She'd been studying the arena's technical specifications, memorizing the layout of every system she could see, and formulating a plan that would either save her life or get her killed slightly more creatively than expected. The gates were about to open, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans had conquered their death world not through strength or speed, but through the ability to turn any situation into a weapon. The champions of death. Crag the Unstoppable. The first champion to enter the arena was Crag, and his very presence seemed to shake the ground beneath his feet. Standing nearly 9 feet tall, his body was a mountain of muscle and natural armor that had been enhanced by the finest military technology in the galaxy. His species, the Gorlaxians, had evolved on a high-gravity world where only the strongest survived, and Crag was the strongest of them all. His war hammer was a thing of beauty and terror, forged from metals that could only be found in the cores of dying stars. The weapon's head was inscribed with the names of every champion he had defeated, and there were over 300 names etched into its surface. Each swing could generate enough force to crack a starship's hull, and his targeting systems were so advanced they could track a mosquito in a hurricane. The crowd roared their approval as Crag raised his weapon high, his mechanical enhancements glowing with power. His redundant organs meant he could survive injuries that would kill most creatures, and his bone density was 3 times that of normal beings. He had never been defeated in single combat, and today would be no different. Xiphon the Energy Master. The second champion moved with liquid grace, his tall, thin frame crackling with barely contained energy. Xiphon belonged to the Voltari, a species that had evolved the natural ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields. But where his ancestors could generate small sparks, Xiphon could call down lightning that could vaporize a building. His cybernetic enhancements had been grafted directly into his nervous system, amplifying his natural abilities by a factor of 100. The energy coils wrapped around his arms could store enough power to run a small city, and his precision was so fine he could stop a single heart cell from beating without affecting the rest of the organ. Xiphon's kills were always spectacular. He could cook an opponent from the inside out, create barriers of pure energy that could deflect any physical attack, or simply overload their nervous system with a thought. The betting pools had him as the favorite to deliver the killing blow, and the crowd cheered as electricity danced between his fingers. Nexar the Mind Killer. The third champion was perhaps the most terrifying of all, not because of his physical presence, but because of what he could do without touching his opponents. Nexar belonged to the Psionic Collective, a species that had evolved beyond the need for physical weapons. His bulbous head pulsed with mental energy, and his third eye glowed with an inner light that could paralyze opponents with fear. Nexar didn't need weapons because he could stop a heart with a thought, drive enemies insane with whispered nightmares, or simply shut down their brain functions one by one. His telepathic abilities had been enhanced by neural implants that allowed him to process thoughts at superhuman speeds, and his range of influence could cover an entire stadium. The most disturbing thing about Nexar wasn't his power, it was his cruelty. He took pleasure in the mental anguish of his opponents, often keeping them alive far longer than necessary just to savor their terror. His favorite technique was to show his enemies their own deaths before making them reality. The arena's deadly features. The Crimson Colosseum itself was as much a weapon as any the champions carried. The arena floor was made from a special alloy that could absorb and redirect energy attacks, preventing stray shots from harming the spectators. Gravity generators positioned around the perimeter could create localized fields of crushing force or zero gravity, depending on the entertainment value. The walls rose 60 feet high, smooth and unclimbable, with no handholds or weapons caches. The only way out was through victory or death, and the arena's medical systems were programmed to keep fighters alive as long as possible to maximize the show's entertainment value. Hidden beneath the floor were dozens of automated systems, cameras, sensors, and emergency protocols that could flood the arena with knockout gas if a fighter somehow posed a threat to the spectators. No gladiator had ever escaped the Crimson Colosseum, and none ever would. The moment of truth. As the three champions took their positions, the crowd's excitement reached fever pitch. Holographic displays showed the betting odds updating in real time, and the general consensus was that this would be the shortest fight in arena history. Some spectators were already placing bets on the next match, assuming this one would be over before they could finish their drinks. Warlord Vexthul raised his 6 arms for silence, his voice echoing through the stadium. Citizens of the galaxy, today you witness the power of true warriors against the weakness of primitive worlds. Let the battle begin. The arena gates opened with a grinding roar, and Jenna Walsh stepped onto the blood-stained floor. She looked even smaller surrounded by the three champions, her simple prison uniform a stark contrast to their advanced armor and weapons. To the crowd, she looked like a lamb being led to slaughter. But as the gates sealed behind her, something changed in Jenna's posture. The trembling stopped, her shoulders straightened, and her eyes took on a calculating gleam that the champions had never seen before. She wasn't looking at them like a terrified victim. She was looking at them like problems to be solved. The silence before the storm. For a moment, the arena fell silent. The three champions stood confident and ready, their combined power enough to level a small city. Jenna stood alone in the center, no weapons, no armor, no visible means of survival. The betting pools showed odds of 1,000 to 1 against her lasting more than 10 seconds. What the galaxy was about to learn was that humans had a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. And Jenna Walsh had enough fight in her to surprise everyone. The battle was about to begin. The battle begins. The first strike. Crag moved first, his massive form thundering across the arena floor with surprising speed. His warhammer swept through the air in a deadly arc that would have crushed a normal opponent into paste. But Jenna wasn't there when the weapon completed its swing. She had rolled to the side at the last possible second, her engineer's eye already calculating the weapon's weight and momentum. The hammer struck the arena floor with a sound like thunder, leaving a crater 3 feet deep in the supposedly indestructible surface. The crowd gasped at the display of raw power, but their amazement turned to confusion when they realized the human had somehow avoided the killing blow. Impossible, Vexthul muttered from his observation deck. She moved too fast. Humans don't have those reflexes. The energy assault. Xiphon didn't wait for Crag to recover. Lightning erupted from his hands, crackling bolts of pure energy that could vaporize a person in seconds. But instead of trying to dodge, Jenna did something unexpected. She dove toward one of the arena's gravity generators, using its metal housing as a conductor to redirect the electrical attack. The lightning followed the path of least resistance, flowing through the generator's systems and causing a cascade failure that sent gravity waves rippling across the arena. Several spectators in the lower sections suddenly found themselves pressed against their seats as localized gravity fields fluctuated wildly. "She's using the arena against us," Nexar's mental voice echoed in his companions' minds. "This human understands technology in ways we didn't anticipate." The mind attack. Nexar struck next, his third eye blazing with psychic energy as he attempted to invade Jenna's mind. He expected to find the usual human thoughts, fear, desperation, prayers to primitive gods. Instead, he encountered something he had never experienced before, a mind that was completely focused on solving problems. Where other opponents had minds full of emotion and terror, Jenna's thoughts were like a military computer. She was analyzing structural weak points, calculating stress loads, and formulating tactics with the precision of a machine. Her military training had taught her to compartmentalize fear and focus on the mission, and right now, her mission was survival. "What are you?" Nexar whispered, his mental probe recoiling from the alien logic of human engineering thinking. The unexpected counterattack. While the champions regrouped, Jenna made her move. She had spotted what she was looking for during her initial survey, a maintenance panel near the arena's edge that provided access to the facility's power grid. Using a piece of debris from Craig's hammer strike, she pried open the panel and began rapidly rewiring the connections. "She's tampering with the arena systems," Quillex reported to Vexthul. "Should we stop her?" "Let her play with her little wires," the warlord replied. "She's only delaying the inevitable." The gravity trap. Jenna's modifications to the power grid had a specific purpose. She had noticed that the arena's gravity generators were connected to the same power network as the spectator safety systems. By creating a feedback loop in the energy flow, she could overload specific generators while leaving others untouched. When Craig charged at her again, she led him directly over the generator she had sabotaged. At the precise moment his feet touched the marked section of floor, she completed her circuit. The gravity field beneath the massive warrior suddenly intensified to 5 times normal strength, driving him to his knees and making his war hammer too heavy to lift. The crowd erupted in amazement as the unstoppable Craig found himself pinned to the floor by his own weight. For the first time in his career, the champion was helpless. The electromagnetic reversal. Xiphon realized the danger and began charging his most powerful attack, a lightning bolt that could punch through starship armor. But Jenna had anticipated this as well. Her sabotage of the gravity generators had created an electromagnetic field that interfered with Xiphon's control over electrical energy. When he released his attack, the bolt curved away from its target and struck the arena's power conduits instead. The resulting explosion sent feedback through the entire system, overloading Xiphon's cybernetic enhancements and causing him to collapse in convulsions as his own power turned against him. "Two down," Jenna muttered, wiping sweat from her brow as she turned to face the final champion. The psychic duel. Nexar was furious. His fellow champions had been defeated by tricks and technology, but he was different. He didn't rely on physical strength or energy manipulation. He was a creature of pure mind, and no primitive human could match his mental powers. He launched a full psychic assault, trying to overwhelm Jenna's consciousness with images of death and terror. But again, he encountered that strange human mind, one that could look at horror and immediately begin calculating how to fix it. Where he projected fear, she saw engineering problems. Where he showed death, she saw system failures that could be corrected. "Your mind is wrong," Nexar gasped, his mental attacks having no effect. "You don't think like other creatures. You're like a machine that solves problems." The final gambit. Jenna smiled grimly as she made her final move. While Nexar had been focused on his mental attacks, she had been working on the arena's holographic projection system. With a few key modifications, she reversed the system's polarity and turned it into a massive electromagnetic pulse generator. The pulse, when it fired, would be focused directly at Nexar's position. His cybernetic implants, designed to enhance his mental abilities, would become his weakness. The electromagnetic energy would overload his neural processors and leave him defenseless. "You want to see how humans think," she called out to the stunned telepath. "We don't just survive problems, we solve them." The pulse fired, and Nexar's screams echoed through the arena as his own enhancements turned against him. The 3 champions of Korath, 7 lay defeated, brought low not by superior strength or speed, but by human ingenuity and the ability to turn any situation into a weapon. The crowd sat in stunned silence as one small human woman stood victorious in the center of the arena, surrounded by the galaxy's most feared warriors. The betting pools had just lost a fortune, and humanity had just earned a reputation that would echo across the stars.